If you're like me, you just finished from Season 3, and we're like, I'm sick and tired of getting around, but don't worry. What's happening is a good thing. A few moments later, hello. Darkness. There is so much to talk about from that absolutely insane birth scene. The introduction of the man in yellow and why is Asta still wearing her damn uniform? But before we begin, make sure to like and subscribe my idea for a costume. Next year is very expensive. The question that's been on everyone's mind since Season 1 is just what exactly is going on in this town? Then, boy, does the finale give us some valuable insight. If you watched some of my past videos, you'll know I believe in something I've called the cycles theory. But maybe cycles isn't the best word to describe this in her conversation with Ethan. Julie tells him about what she experienced after crossing the threshold. And going back in time, he tells her she's a storywalker or someone who can revisit chapters of a story that have already happened. Julie going back and throwing that rope down to Boyd is a chapter. Her seeing herself, Randall, and Marielle is a chapter, and these chapters combined to make a story which has been repeating for hundreds of years, as we've seen characters in Civil War uniforms, pioneer clothing, and paintings of pilgrims in Season 1, etched in the side of the lighthouse in Tabitha's dream, are some specific dates. I believe these are the start and end times of this story before it repeats. Now you might be asking yourself, aren't these the same numbers found in the bottle tree? Meaning they aren't dates at all. There are 2 dates which can be found both etched in the lighthouse and on the bottle tree paper, 1864 and 1883. But there's just something about the carvings in the lighthouse here which make me think there's more to them than just musical notes. So the town is essentially the setting for this repeating story, with our characters taking on roles that go back. CES certain characters can tap into the memories of past versions of themselves. I'm a little hesitant to call it reincarnation. There's a lot of baggage that comes with that, but certainly memories are transferred from one person to another. Jade also brings up the first law of thermodynamics, in which energy can neither be created or destroyed. It can only change from one form to another. Thoughts, memories, and souls are merely a form of energy, and this town may serve as a place for this energy to linger, to understand how this place works. We have to do exactly what the boy in white told Christopher. We have to go back to the beginning. The boy's cryptic story is all about a group of kids sacrificed by their parents in order to achieve immortality. They sacrifice their children because it promised them that they would live forever. I like to think these creatures are like what Martin said, just the tip of the spear of the evil in this town. There are far more dangerous things out there. Case in point, the man in yellow who we'll get to in a bit. The finale answers 2 important questions. What is Anghkooey? And what are the numbers found in the bottle tree? Anghkooey means remember. The children want Jade and Tabitha to remember the memories of their spiritual ancestors, which would allow them to save the kids and end this story for good. But what I don't understand is how come these kids didn't just say, remember, why did they have to use this cryptic word? Or how come the bottle tree didn't have musical notes in it? Why the conf using numbers with backward 2s and 7s? Jade has the same frustration saying, you could have just told me. So obviously there's a yet-to-be-discovered reason why. The children can't just tell them the messages in the bottle tree correspond with musical notes for Jade. It's just a matter of figuring out which numbers mean which note. And there's been a big clue sitting right in front of us the whole time. This dartboard, which is shaped just like a circle of fifths. A circle of fifths is used in music theory to organize different pitches. You'll notice there are 12 of them in this circle, 1 for each note in a chromatic scale, for the purposes of the numbers found in the bottles. The numbers 10, 11, and 12 have been replaced with 0 backwards, 2 and backwards 7, to avoid people confusing a number such as 10 with the individual numbers 1 and 0. Honestly, I think this show didn't do the best job at explaining this. So if the town is our setting for this story, who are our characters, and, what I mean, here are the original characters, the ones who started it all in the finale. We get confirmation that Jade and Tabitha are essentially the reincarnation or spiritual successors to a couple that sang lullabies to the children hundreds of years ago. The two even had a daughter together that they failed to set free. We've come back over and over again because we failed the first time before them. It was Christopher and Miranda, and before them. Well, that's one of the cool things about this show. We could start unlocking memories from hundreds of years ago and introducing new characters that are linked to the ones we already know. Part of the fun of next season will be trying to guess which town's person is linked to a character from the past. And I have a few guesses on who is who. We already know a bit about Jade and Tabitha, but what about someone like Elgin? He got one of his eyes taken out, which is similar to the Civil War soldier, and blood-drinking pioneer Julie, Mariel, and Randall seem to be the successors to the 3 chain bodies in Martin's dungeon. And I'd even go so far to say that Randall might be this story's version of Martin. Both have been chained up. Martin remembers Julie by name, and she and Randall got close this season. And both are tortured by some greater power. Randall may also be the man in yellow. But I'll get to that in my next section. Aosta could be Boyd's wife, Abby. Other than the two of them being blonde white women, they both served in some kind of enforcement. Abby as a Marine and Aosta as a police officer. Also, it's just kind of funny to think that Aosta, who has accosted Boyd all season, would end up being the reincarnation of his wife. Now, does this mean every character is special or some sort of reincarnation of another? Not exactly in every story. You have characters that are more important than others, so someone like Tabitha will be more important than Jim, who coincidentally gets killed. This episode, this leads me to Julie, who I think has climbed the ranks, is the second most important character in solving the mystery of this place behind Victor. And this has everything to do with our final scene. As Jim takes in the insanity of the day's revelations, he hears Julie scream. Now, Julie looks markedly different than the last time we saw her in the diner with Ethan. Different clothes, hair, and 3 streaks of blood. Perhaps a cut across her face. This is very similar to the one Randall had from the monsters, which would suggest she was cut by a creature. This Julie could be from a different time, a Julie who is currently story-walking, similar to what she experienced by going over the threshold and getting into Martin's dungeon. She tells her father she thinks, quote, "This is when it happens." And that could be a reference to Jim's death, since she states she needs to change the story. This is rather interesting, considering Ethan told her, you can't change the story once it's been told, but maybe Julie can, but it's the introduction of the man in yellow which is deeply concerning. He seems to be like one of these creatures on steroids. He's strong enough to take on Jim, can walk in daylight, knows about Jade's song and things, like how Tabitha dug that hole in the basement in Season 1. Your wife shouldn't have dug that hole. Jim, this would imply that the man Jim talked to on the radio all the way back in Season 1 was in fact the man in yellow. Your wife shouldn't be digging that hole. Jim, the man in yellow, is also a vision Miranda saw. We see a painting of him in her basement. A lot of people have mentioned what appears to be a scar on his right cheek, which may indicate he is Randall or some past or future version of him. However, there is no such scar on him. Here Randall has had a unique relationship with the creatures, who specifically requested he be traded for Boyd, and the other's safety in episode 3. 04, we know that's when they scarred him. However, what if there was a more nefarious reason they needed him? These creatures perform all sorts of weird rituals. So, who knows? I believe the town is in a constant struggle between a good and evil entity. The man in yellow might be the leader of this evil side, and either the boy in white or a character, yet to be revealed in charge of the good. If we know Tabitha and Jade are good, and the boy and white was trying to help them, it would imply the boy and white is good too, and should be trusted. As far as we know, the story of this town began with a group of couples who sacrificed their children, believing doing so would allow them to live forever. They sacrificed their children because it promised them that they would live forever. Could this thing that promised them immortality be the man in yellow, and Jade and Tabitha were the only couple not to join in on this sacrifice? I should also mention that the name Boyd comes from Gillick, meaning yellow-haired. It would be absolutely wild if the man in yellow is the broken version of boy. And stick around to my Randall section later on, because there's a big clue on who the man in yellow might actually be, just like how our characters experience this reincarnation of sorts. It appears our creatures do as well. With the rebirth of Smiley, Fatima's pregnancy has been a big topic of conversation. This season initially, Fatima was told she could never have children, but lo and behold, she somehow gets pregnant. However, Elgin will later tell her it's not her baby. What we don't know is how Fatima got infected with this creature child. There isn't a specific instance. Like when Boyd got infected by Martin, it appears the kimono woman works at the behest of these creatures, and her manipulation of Elgin was essential in carrying out her plans. We still really don't know who or what the kimono woman is. She's not quite one of these creatures, but she's also not human. Tilly helping Fatima throughout her pregnancy also raises some eyebrows. I believe that Tilly knew she was going to die, and she was a necessary sacrifice in order to get Fatima to run away, which winds up with her confined in that cellar. Everything about Smiley's birth is unnatural, from the drinking of blood, rapid pregnancy, and how this amniotic sac gives way to a fully formed adult. Even Fatima's stomach is completely deflated less than an hour after giving birth. All the other creatures watch as the kimono woman brings forward this sac, including Boyd, who's going to have one hell of a time explaining this to everyone else. According to Fatima, she saw what these creatures truly are. They are the ones who sacrifice their children to live forever. Perhaps they were tricked by this evil entity. Yes, they will live forever. But as these monstrous creatures, upon capturing Elgin and finding out he's the one who kidnapped Fatima Boyd, must make the gut-wrenching decision whether or not to torture him in order to save Fatima. A common theme throughout the series has been whether this place can break Boyd, and the ghost of Father Catry says that if Boyd ends up going through with this, the evil will have won. You said that you weren't going to let this place break you. If you do this, this place is won. This is part of the reason Sarah does the dirty work for Boyd. She's already been tainted by the town, and doesn't want to see Boyd's soul taken, like the town took hers while interrogating Eldon. His Polaroid camera goes off, showing a picture of Boyd's retirement house. This is where he and the family were headed before running into the tree that led them to town. But the picture is missing something. His boat, the keys of which we can see in episode 102, which were given to him as a retirement gift. Why, though, would this be omitted? Does it mean the evil entity doesn't know everything? Or does it have something to do with the entity not wanting to remind him of it? Boats seem to be a key to unlocking the mystery of the town. Boats are found on the cave paintings in the tunnel, and it's a literal lighthouse that allows Tabitha to get back to the real world. There's even this weird moment while Boyd climbs the rope in Martin's dungeon, where he sees a vision of Ellis' dad. It's getting dark. You said we take the boat out. Ethan also mentions a place called the Lake of Tears, from his book Flight of the Coley, and isn't a lake of tears just another name for the ocean. Salty water if you want to know more about the boat. Theory, check out Calm, Concentrate's thread on Reddit, which I'll leave a link to in the description below. A smaller portion of the finale is dedicated to Victor and Henry. Victor takes Henry to the makeshift graves he made for Miranda and Eloise. I think we can officially confirm that Miranda is dead. Not only did Victor find her remains, but the soul or memory that inhabited her has now gone to Tabitha. The same cannot be said of Eloise. Victor said there wasn't much left of Eloise because she was so tiny, and he can't confirm if it was her at all. I believe Eloise is still alive. If she followed her mother, it's entirely possible she tried to help her mom when Smiley attacked and somehow ended up going through the faraway tree. This would explain why she hasn't been seen. She could be in an entirely different part of town, much further away, or she may have even made it back to the real world. However, if she made it back to the real world, I'm surprised she didn't try to get in touch with her father. So my guess is she is somewhere in from, or perhaps even a different time. Notice the rainbow paintings Victor has drawn on these rocks. The rainbow sky imagery is one described in Flight of the Coley. It's a rainbow sky the Croman Owl gets lost in, but eventually finds a map of to find her way home. Those damn sickus continue to ore Permit Randall so much so that he grabs the defibrillator to give himself his own electroshock therapy. Fortunately, he's stopped by Marielle, but this needs to be addressed before it gets any worse. Notice the name of the medical supply company. This machine is from Mao. In my search, I couldn't find any company in the real world called Mabuse that makes this type of equipment, which leads me to believe it was created just for the show. It could be as simple as an acronym like Medical Ambulance, Bus, United States Emergency, or could have a far more nefarious meaning. Dr. Mabo was a fictional character in a series of novels, and wait till you hear his description. Dr. Mabuse is a master of disguise and telepathic hypnosis known to employ body transference, most often through demonic possession, but sometimes utilizing object technologies such as television or phonograph machines to build a society of crime. Mabo rarely commits his crimes in person, instead operating primarily through a network of agents enacting his schemes, thus remaining a shadowy figure. The equipment, like the sonogram, was absolutely manipulated, not to mention other electronics like telephones, radio, and jukeboxes. His description goes on to say, Dr. Mabo may be defeated and sent to an asylum jail or the grave only for a new Dr. Mabo to later appear. Marielle has also been tight-lipped about her experience. After getting saved by the Sickus in comparison to Randall and Julie, she's been doing much better, but will later tell Christ she's not fine at all, nor does she think anyone else will be. I still think Marielle may be controlled, either consciously or subconsciously, by a malevolent entity. Remember that she was the primary caregiver for Fatima. During her pregnancy, she gave her weird medicine and IVs. She invited Randall to live with her and Christe at the clinic, and was suspicious about what Julie discovered when she recovered from her seizure in the forest. Everything about Marielle seems suspicious. Literally, as I was finishing this video, it just came out that from will be renewed for a season 4. So I hope you'll stick with me as I continue to delve into this amazing show. But now, I turn it over to you. What are your biggest thoughts and theories? I want to hear them in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe.